My name is Lena Maris Caldwell, and I'm 27. I learned two things at the airline counter that afternoon. One, fluorescent lights make even hope look sickly. Two, the people who say they love you can cancel your life with a single click. The system shows your ticket was canceled, the agent said, voice smooth from practice. She didn't sound cruel, just used to wreckage. Canceled? The words scraped on the way out. That's not possible. My parents booked it, a family New Year surprise. I pushed my phone across the counter, the confirmation email bright as a promise. She glanced, then gave me the soft-eyed look reserved for losses. It was canceled on December 27th. You'll need customer service for more. 2 days ago. 2 days ago, my suitcase sat open on the bed next to a stack of winter sweaters that suddenly felt ridiculous in the airport heat. 2 days ago, Mom had texted heart emojis about our big adventure, and Dad wrote, "You need a break. We'll cover everything." The tickets, the hotel, even spending money he'd joked about, like we were still children with allowance envelopes. I stepped out of line, the terminal noise turning tinny and far away. Only they had control of the ticket. Only they had the login, the payment, the plan. I texted Mom. "They say my ticket's canceled. Is this a mistake?" 5 minutes. 10. The scrolling board blinked new destinations like escape plans. A child laughed in the distance. Bright, untouchable. My phone buzzed. "Happy New Year, loser." At first, I thought it was a missend, an ugly joke meant for someone else. Then I read it again and felt the trapdoor open beneath my ribs. There was no typo, no apology, just the neat punctuation of contempt. I felt the old stuff rise. Heat, humiliation, the reflex to explain that I've always helped, always paid, always shown up. The certainty that if I replied just right, I could bargain my way back into their idea of love. I typed, "A surprise awaits you when you get back." Vague enough to make them sweat. Soft enough to be deniable. Sharp enough to stop me from crying where everyone could see. The phone lit up. Mom again. I watched the call bloom and die on the screen. Again. Decline. Again. Decline. I didn't give her my voice. I didn't give her the scene. I zipped my suitcase closed and walked out through the sliding doors into cold air that felt like the first honest thing all day. Here's what I want to admit without shame. I have been their oxygen, groceries, utilities, one-time bailouts that learned how to multiply. A car for Mom's birthday, because Dad needed time and Mom wanted to feel proud again. An emergency savings account we opened for all of us, which turned into a bottomless drain I kept refilling, because that's what daughters do when love is confused with ledger lines. The drive home was a tunnel of headlights and clarity. I turned my phone off at a red light and sat with the color against my face like a warning I decided to ignore. In the apartment, I put the suitcase on the bed and didn't unpack. The silence was so complete it had weight. I made tea I wouldn't drink and opened a blank document titled Plan. The cursor blinked at me like a heartbeat. Step 1. The car. I'd surprised Mom with it 3 months ago. Her joy so big, it made me forget the ache in my checking account. I paid the taxes, the first year of insurance, even the premium roadside add-on she liked the sound of. The title was in my name. That was the only thing I did for me. I called the buyer I'd met at a work event who'd once joked he loved that model. We met the next day. He paid cash. I signed and didn't flinch. Step 2, the joint account we called safety. I transferred every cent out, my cents mostly, and closed the loop. It took 15 minutes to become a woman whose boundaries existed in code and balances. Mom's texts arrived in waves. We were joking. "Don't ruin New Year's for everyone. You're blowing this out of proportion." Then Dad, "We thought you'd just stay home and relax. You're overreacting." Overreacting is what people accuse you of when your reaction finally matches the harm. I didn't respond. I screenshot everything and dropped it into a folder I labeled Archive, Proof I'm Not Imagining This. That night, I sat on the floor with my back to the couch and stared at the blank TV screen. My reflection in the black glass wasn't dramatic, just tired. The tea on the table had gone cold. A moth tapped the window and moved on. When sleep came, it was thin and tentative, like it didn't trust me yet. The next day, the family group chat lit up with fireworks, gifts, and countdown memes. I stayed out of it. My aunt and uncle texted me separately. Happy New Year, kiddo. You okay? Your mom said you were too sick to travel. I almost laughed. The lie wore a cheap perfume. Not sick, I wrote back. Ticket canceled. At the counter. By them. A pause. Uncle. They did what? Then the flood. Cousins chiming in. WTF. That's messed up. We were meeting you there. The truth didn't need a speech. It just needed oxygen. Funny how I had so much of that once I stopped being theirs. I spent the afternoon cleaning corners that hadn't seen light in months, not because they were dirty, but because order felt like resistance. My phone buzzed against the counter with Mom's alternating sugar and venom. I let each one stack on the last until the device felt heavy enough to set down like a stone. Around dusk, Evan knocked. My boyfriend stood in the hall with takeout and that careful, almost shy half smile he saves for delicate moments. We've been together long enough for comfort, short enough for questions. Lately, he'd been carrying more than his share of the questions. I heard there was airport drama, he said, stepping inside when I didn't say no. He set the food on the table and didn't reach for me, which somehow felt like respect. Ticket was canceled, I said, on purpose. His jaw tightened, then he softened it with a breath. I'm sorry. We ate out of cartons on the couch, knees almost touching. The heat from the pepper shrimp stung my eyes. Or maybe that was everything else. He studied me. You're not texting them back? I shook my head. I'm done explaining hunger to people who enjoy taking my plate. He sat with that. Okay, if you need me to stand down, I will. If you need me to stand nearby, I will. I need you to not be a rescue, I said gently. Just be a person. He nodded. I can do that. We didn't talk about his ex, Alina, but for a second I saw it flicker across his face. The years he spent apologizing for boundaries. I filed it away for later, not as ammunition, but as a mirror. After he left, the apartment returned to its true size. I opened the window to winter air and let the chill steady me. In the quiet, a memory. Me at 18, counting tips at the kitchen table while Mom cried about the light bill. Me at 22, signing my name on their debt consolidation because Dad swore just 6 months to stabilize. The timeline of my love written in auto drafts and overdraft fees. 10 days. That's how long it took to convert anger into architecture. I listed every subscription, every shared access, every auto pay with a tendril in my life. I changed passwords, added two-factor, revoked trusted devices that were never mine. I made an appointment to remove Mom's name from the roadside plan and added mine where it had belonged all along. These weren't just tasks, they were edits to the story. On New Year's Eve, the city outside hollered its countdown. I stayed in, cracked a ginger beer, and watched a movie with the volume low. My phone stayed face down except for one thread. Cousins sending dumb selfies with fake mustaches and "We got you" in the captions. It felt like being picked first for once. At midnight, I texted my parents 2 words, Happy New Year. Then I added one more line, the smallest promise I could make without lying to myself. See you soon. Not at a party or an airport. In my living room, under my rules, with the truth present and sitting up straight. Almost immediately, Mom's typing bubble appeared, then disappeared. I pictured her in some glittering European square, mouth tight, phone hot in her hand. I pictured Dad looking away, deciding silence might make this blow over. It wouldn't. I slept hard that night. When morning came, it brought the kind of light that shows you what's really on the floor. I brewed coffee and opened my front door to a world that looked the same and felt different. The plan was in motion. The car was gone. The account was closed. The archive was growing. The relatives had questions. And somewhere over the Atlantic, my parents were flying home into a conversation I'd finally be ready to have, the kind with receipts and a spine. Before I shut the door, I noticed a scuff on the threshold, like a key that didn't belong had tried to find its way in. I didn't know yet how many locks my life had, or how many keys my parents still held. I only knew this. I was changing the locks. They landed on a gray afternoon that smelled like rain and recycled air. I knew because Melissa, my cousin with a gift for play-by-play, texted, "Touchdown, looks tense. You ready?" I wiped my counters one last time, the microfiber cloth moving in small, nervous circles that had nothing to do with crumbs, and set out a pitcher of water like I was expecting reasonable people. At 3:14 p.m., the bell rang. When I opened the door, the hallway looked like a family portrait that forgot how to smile. Dad stood at the front in his airport blazer, Mom behind him with sunglasses pushed up on her hair like a crown that had seen better days. My sister, 19 and wary. Uncle Ray, Aunt Lila, Melissa, and 2 cousins fanned out like reluctant witnesses. They'd brought an audience. Of course they had. "Can we talk?" Mom asked, voice fragile in the way that always made me want to apologize first. "Sure," I said, stepping aside. "Everyone in." They filed into my living room. Sage green walls, a repaired chair, a candle breathing quietly on the shelf. Evan had suggested he be here, but I told him no. I wanted my voice unbraided from anyone else's. Dad did his survey, the one where he scans a room like a foreman checking a job site. He didn't sit. Mom did, perching on the edge of the couch like she might spring into decency at any moment. "This got out of hand," she said. "It was a joke that went too far." "Canceling my ticket was a joke," I repeated, to be sure the sentence sounded as absurd in the air as it had in my head. Dad lifted his hands, palms outward. "We thought you'd take the time to rest. You're always so wound up. We didn't think you'd react." "Cancel a flight. Lie to the family that I was sick. Text your daughter, 'Happy New Year, loser.'" I tilted my head. "And you're surprised I reacted?" Uncle Ray's brow collapsed. "Wait, they sent that?" He looked at Mom. "You told us she couldn't fly." Mom's gaze flicked past him and back to me. "That text was a mistake." "You typed it," I said. "You hit send. The mistake was expecting me to swallow it." Aunt Lila cleared her throat, softer. "Maybe we should all—" "No," I said, and the word was surprisingly calm in the room. "We're going to do this clean." I stood, walked to the console, and picked up a folder. Inside, screenshots, printed and highlighted because I wanted something paper to hold while I stopped being their oxygen. "First," I said, laying the pages on the coffee table, "this is the airport timeline. Canceled December 27th. Confirmation here." I tapped the dates. "Second, the message. Your words." Mom's mouth tightened. Dad started pacing. "You're making a spectacle, Lena." "You flew a troop to my door," I said. "I'm offering a program." Melissa's eyes flashed at me like a small beam of loyalty. My sister stared at the carpet, thumb worrying a fray in the rug. "Third," I continued, and pulled out the next sheet. "I took action. The car, the one I bought you for your birthday, was titled in my name. I sold it. The buyer paid cash. The transaction is complete." Mom's jaw fell. The room absorbed her gasp the way rooms do when they've heard worse. "You sold my car?" "It was my car," I said evenly. "I just let you drive it." Dad's pacing sharpened. "Petty. You're being petty." "Fourth," I said, lifting the final pages, "the joint emergency account." I closed the drain. Every dollar that went in, mostly mine, came out. The account no longer exists. Silence. Even the candle went still. Uncle Ray drew a breath as if surfacing. "Hold on," he said to my parents, voice low and precise. "You canceled her ticket and told us she was sick? You texted her that?" He pointed to the screenshot like it might burn him. "What did you expect would happen?" Mom's hands fluttered. "We were frustrated. She's been withholding." "Withholding?" I laughed, and it didn't sound cruel, just relieved. "I have kept your lights on, your car insured, your emergencies floating. I gave you oxygen while I still felt dizzy." Dad slammed his palm on the back of the chair, just enough to make it complain. "You owe us respect." "I owe you honesty," I said, and felt something lock into place behind my ribs. "So here it is. I'm done paying your mortgage. I'm done being your safety net. From now on, you live within your numbers, not mine." The room changed temperature. Mom's face flushed, then blanched. "You can't do this. Family is family." "Family is not a financial instrument," I said. "Not anymore." An argument burst like a thunderhead. Dad called me ungrateful, the syllables tight and practiced. Mom cried, then hardened into accusation. "After everything we've done, you'll understand when you're a mother, you're letting outsiders poison you." "Outsiders?" Melissa muttered. "We're right here." My sister finally lifted her head. "I just wanted us to go to Europe," she said, voice small and cracking in the middle. I looked at her and saw the 19-year-old, who still believed if she performed enough softness, the storm would pass over her. "It wasn't about Europe," I said gently. "It's never been about the trip." "Enough," I said, louder now, and the room obeyed. "Here's how this ends today. You don't contact me for money. You don't show up without asking. If you need help, you call professionals. A doctor, a credit counselor, a locksmith, a therapist. Not your daughter. Not anymore. Dad opened his mouth to spit fire, but Uncle Ray cut in, voice iron. You brought this on yourselves, he said, looking straight at them. You don't treat your daughter like a bank. You don't strand her at an airport and call it a joke. Aunt Lila nodded, eyes wet. This isn't how we do family. For a heartbeat, I expected the ground to give way because this was the part where I usually backtracked, apologized for tone, softened the boundary to make it palatable. I did none of that. I stood there, both feet on my own floor, and didn't move. Dad grabbed the folder and flung the top page aside in a gesture that was supposed to mean power. The paper fluttered down, underwhelmed. You'll regret this, he said. Maybe, I answered, but I won't regret this, choosing not to drown with you. Mom stood. Her sunglasses slid from her hair to her hand. She clenched them like a weapon too fragile to use. We're your parents, she said. We'll always be your parents. You will, I agreed, and I'll always be your daughter. From a distance that keeps us decent. They left in a rush of breath and door. The hallway swallowed their retreat. For a few seconds, the apartment held the tremor the way a bell holds sound. Then, something I didn't expect. No one else moved. Uncle Ray exhaled. Aunt Lila sat back down. Melissa came to the kitchen and poured water with the authority of a bartender. My sister remained standing, stranded in the center of the rug. You okay? I asked her. She looked at me, eyes bright with a fear I recognized like my own reflection. I don't know where I belong. Here, I said softly, if you want. Her mouth quivered toward a smile and didn't make it. I didn't know they canceled your ticket. They told me you were being dramatic again. I know, I said. That's their favorite broadcast. Uncle Ray rubbed his temples. I should have asked you directly, he said to me. I'm sorry. I nodded. The apology felt like a door opening to clean air. For an hour, the apartment became a quiet tribunal where the truth didn't need to win, only to be heard. People who had learned to defer to my parents' volume remembered how to speak in their own voices. No speeches, no verdict, just a recalibration. When the dust finally settled, Aunt Lila said, Let's get out of here one day, all of us. Somewhere warm, on us. Somewhere with water you don't have to save anyone from, Melissa added and winked. I smiled. I'll think about it. After they left, I stood in my doorway and watched the empty hall like it could teach me something. The silence wasn't punishing anymore. It was informative. It said, You did it. Now keep doing it. My phone buzzed on the counter. Unknown number. We should meet, talk this through. Family meeting, 7 p.m. Mom again, this time cloaked as anonymity. I blocked it. Then I texted Jenna and Marcus, the cousins who had helped me architect the boundary in the first place. It's done. Marcus replied with a single line. Keep receipts. Keep calm. Jenna followed. Proud of you. Don't open the door after dark. A joke, but not entirely. But not. I picked up a record sleeve, one of the survivors, and slid the vinyl onto the turntable. The needle found the groove, and the room filled with a soft crackle that sounded like rain remembering how to be music. A memory landed. Evan on my couch last week, careful hands, careful words. He'd said, When guilt knocks, it sounds like urgency. That's how my ex got me to forget myself. He'd smiled, wry, and a little haunted. Don't let urgency trick you into opening the door. I hadn't. Not today. I poured myself water and drank it like it was a new habit. When the song ended, I didn't flip the record. I let the needle rest. I let my body rest. The world, miraculously, did not end. Outside, late lights slid along the buildings. Inside, I wrote myself a promise on a sticky note and pressed it to the whiteboard by the door. No more oxygen I cannot spare. No more doors I didn't lock. No more meetings with my old self. I stood there until the words belonged to me. Then I turned off the lamp, and the apartment became exactly what I needed. 4 walls, 1 decision, and the kind of quiet that stays. 3 weeks passed without a word from them. No calls, no texts, no guilt-laced messages sneaking through blocked numbers. For the first time in years, the silence didn't feel like punishment. It felt earned. Then came the morning the silence broke. I had just returned from a long weekend with my aunt, uncle, and cousins, the same ones who'd stood with me during the showdown. We'd gone to the coast, somewhere warm, somewhere where I could finally breathe without waiting for my phone to explode. I came home sunburned, rested, humming. Until I saw the car. It sat at the curb where I'd left it, but barely recognizable. The windshield was shattered. Every window gone. The tires slashed and sagging like deflated lungs. And scrawled across the side in bright red spray paint were 7 words that froze me to the pavement. You shouldn't have moved our property. The color dripped down the doors like blood that refused to dry. For a long moment, I couldn't move. My breath came shallow, controlled, like my body already knew panic would make me stupid. Then the heat came, the kind that starts at the spine and works its way to your throat. I took out my phone, fingers trembling but precise. Photo, close-up, wide shot, license plate, paint, every detail. Evidence before emotion. That was the rule now. A neighbor, an older man from the 3rd floor, stepped outside with a trash bag in hand. "Good Lord," he said. "You pissed someone off?" I managed a smile that didn't reach my eyes. "Something like that." He shook his head. "Family dispute, huh? Always the worst kind." I didn't answer, but my silence must have said enough. Within the hour, I'd filed a police report. The officer who showed up was young, kind-eyed, maybe not yet jaded by this kind of drama. He walked around the car taking notes. "Any suspects?" "Yes," I said without hesitation. "My parents." His pen paused mid-stroke. "Your parents?" "They've been angry since I stopped helping them financially," I said flatly. "This feels like revenge." He blinked, then wrote it down. "Okay, we'll look into it." When he left, I stood by the ruined car until the tow truck came, the hum of the winch drowning out the last of my shock. It wasn't sadness anymore. It was data. It was proof of exactly what I had escaped. That night, I called my lawyer. She didn't sound surprised. She'd handled enough family vandalism cases to know they rarely stop at property. We filed for damages the next morning. For the next few days, I kept my head down. Worked, cooked, breathed. But the pit in my stomach didn't fade. Because people like my parents don't sit quietly when they're cornered. They redirect. Sure enough, on the 4th day, the phone rang. Unknown number. I almost let it go to voicemail, but instinct told me to answer. "Ms. Caldwell?" The voice was official, the officer from before. "We've spoken to your parents." My pulse quickened. "And?" "They deny any involvement," he said carefully. "They claim it was your younger sister. They say she acted alone after a family dispute." For a moment, I couldn't even speak. "My sister?" I repeated. "She's 19. She wouldn't do that." "They insist she was angry," he continued. "She said she wanted to teach you a lesson." I closed my eyes. "No, that's not true. They're using her." The officer hesitated. "We're still investigating. I'll keep you updated." When the call ended, I sank into the couch and stared at the ceiling until my vision blurred. Of course they'd try to use her. When manipulation fails, scapegoating is plan B. I texted my sister immediately. "Did you hear what they told the police?" She responded within seconds. "Yeah, they're insane. I swear I didn't touch your car. They're trying to make me take the blame. I'm so done with them." I could almost hear her voice cracking through the words. "I believe you," I replied, "and I'm proud of you for not covering for them." For a while she didn't reply. Then one last message. "I'm going to tell the truth." And she did. When the case went to court, she testified against them. Calm, clear, and heartbreakingly steady. The evidence was overwhelming. The handwriting on the spray paint cans matched my father's. The surveillance camera from the corner store caught their car 2 blocks from my building the night of the vandalism. The judge fined them heavily and ordered restitution. It wasn't jail time, but it was accountability. The one language they couldn't fake fluency in. After the verdict, I waited outside the courthouse with my sister. She wore a beige coat too big for her, hair tied back, eyes rimmed red but shining. "You didn't have to do that," I told her softly. "Yes, I did," she said. "I let them use me for too long. You stopped them first. I just followed." I pulled her into a hug, the kind that felt both old and new. "You're free now," I whispered. "So are you," she said. That night, I drove her home to her dorm and sat in the car for a while after she went inside. The steering wheel felt foreign under my hands. The silence heavy, but clean. Back in my apartment, I poured a glass of wine and stared at the documents spread across my table. Court papers, receipts, photos, notes from the lawyer. Proof of every lie, every escalation, every time they'd mistaken cruelty for control. For years, they'd said family is forever like it was scripture. But that night, I realized forever doesn't mean what they think it does. Forever doesn't mean endure abuse without question. Forever means the truth doesn't go away just because you ignore it. When I finally went to bed, I dreamed of keys, dozens of them, all shining in the dark, waiting for the right lock. And I woke knowing the story wasn't finished. Because people like my parents don't end with apologies. They end with secrets. And secrets eventually want to be found. The letter arrived on a Thursday. No return address. No handwriting I recognized. Just my name, Ms. Lena M. Caldwell, scrawled across the front in a hurried slant. For 2 full minutes, I just stared at it. I wasn't expecting anything. Not after the court verdict. Not after I'd blocked their numbers. Not after my lawyer said, "You're done now." But the envelope was real, and heavier than paper should be. I tore it open. Inside was a short note, written in my mother's handwriting. "You've made your point, but before this war escalates any further, you might want to open this." Taped beneath the message was a key. Small, silver, no tag, no explanation. For a long moment, I just stood there, staring at the dull gleam in my palm. A key. To what? To where? And more importantly, why now? It wasn't an olive branch. My mother didn't do peace offerings. She did power plays. Every gesture meant leverage. Every mystery came with a price. Still, curiosity is a dangerous thing, and mine has teeth. That night, I sat on the couch with the key between my fingers, turning it like a coin, as if it might confess something. I tried the obvious: my apartment door, my mailbox, the old lockbox I'd once used for spare cash. Nothing. I told myself to ignore it, to throw it away, to burn it even, but I didn't. Because here's the truth. When someone like my mother hands you a key, it's never random. It's an invitation or a warning. By morning, I was making coffee and Googling how to identify key types. Later that day, my Aunt Lila called, out of the blue. Her voice was low, hesitant. "I heard from your mother this morning," she said. My stomach tightened. What did she say? "That you'll finally understand everything soon." "Understand what?" "She didn't explain," my aunt said. "You know how she is." Oh, I knew exactly how she was. My mother loved riddles that sounded like prophecies. That night, as I tried to sleep, a memory surfaced, a faint, half-buried thought. My parents used to rent an old storage unit across town. Back when I was a kid, it was their secret spot. I remembered visiting it once, watching Dad lock the door, Mom whispering, "No one needs to know about this place." I sat up in bed, my pulse quickened. The next morning I drove there. The building looked tired. A long row of faded blue doors and rusting padlocks, the kind of place where time collects dust and secrets grow teeth. The manager was older now, but he recognized the family name. "Been a while," he said, glancing through records. "Unit 312, still active, paid up in full." My hands trembled as I slid the key into the lock. It turned smoothly, like it had been waiting for me. The door creaked open. Dust bloomed. Light sliced through the dim space, revealing stacks of boxes, an old couch, mismatched furniture, and a faint smell of paper and oil. For a while, it just looked like junk, the kind of clutter people promise to deal with someday. But then I saw it. A metal chest tucked against the back wall, heavy, locked. The key fit perfectly. When the latch snapped open, something inside me did too. Inside were folders, dozens of them, stacked with methodical precision. Some labeled taxes, property, deeds, accounts. Others had no labels at all. Beneath the file sat a small safe box, and when I opened it, I froze. Stacks of cash rubber-banded tight, more than I'd ever seen in one place. I sat on the dusty floor, legs trembling, pulling document after document out of the chest. Property deeds in other names, offshore accounts, investment portfolios, my parents' signatures on every page. They weren't broke. They'd never been broke. Every tearful phone call about bills, every story about medical debt or overdue payments, all lies. They weren't victims. They were hoarders of wealth, draining their own children while stockpiling their empire in secret. For years, they'd told me, "We're barely getting by." They weren't getting by. They were getting rich. And I was their cover. I took photos of everything, each page, each document. My hands didn't shake anymore. I was too far past anger for that. This was clarity. Cold, surgical, absolute. I locked the unit back up, slid the key into my pocket, and drove home with the kind of stillness that comes only after the truth has stopped being shocking. When I got home, I texted my mother just 2 words. I found it. She replied within minutes. "We need to talk." I didn't respond. That night, my bank account pinged. A new transfer, large, Every penny they had borrowed from me, and then some, had appeared, unprompted. It wasn't an apology, it was hush money. They thought payment would erase everything. They didn't understand. This was never about the money. It was about the years they took, the way they'd made me feel small, indebted, responsible for their comfort while they lived behind locked doors of luxury. The next morning, I called my lawyer. We arranged safe copies of everything: digital backups, cloud storage, the works. I wasn't looking for revenge anymore. I was looking for peace, backed by proof. Later that night, my sister called. Her voice was quiet but steady. "Mom's freaking out," she said. "She keeps saying you're trying to destroy the family legacy." "I'm not destroying anything," I said. "I'm just refusing to carry the lie." There was a long pause. "I want out too," she whispered. "I'm tired, Lena. I don't want to live like them." My throat tightened. "Then don't," I said softly. "You don't owe them anything. You don't owe anyone your freedom." When we hung up, I sat by the window, city lights flickering against the glass, the old key resting in my palm. That little piece of metal had opened more than a storage unit. It had opened the truth. By midnight, I blocked my parents' numbers for the last time. No more contact, no more guilt, no more explanations. Just silence, clean, final, and mine. The next morning, I woke up to sunlight pooling across the floor. The air felt lighter. I wasn't carrying anyone anymore. It hit me then that freedom isn't loud. It doesn't announce itself with fireworks. It just stays. And for the first time, I didn't feel like I'd lost a family. I felt like I'd found myself.